distribution in the state of New York. Grizzlies, they've agreed to pick us up. So I think that when you talk about how is it that you get distribution, I think that is the biggest barrier besides getting your federal, like you said, your TTB licenses and all of that. Then you've got to get your revenue licenses for the states. Like I know in Georgia, I think that application was 27 pages long, and I had to submit 10 years of tax returns for the state of Georgia. Yeah. So, So, the whole distilled spirits, we hold licenses in 14 states. Every state is different. Every state puts as the founder of the company, they do a review of tax returns back for 10 years to make sure that I don't owe taxes or, any of the other stuff, in addition to the criminal background checks and all of that, And so it is quite amazing. For some states, they even do your credit check. They run your credit reports and, all the other stuff. And so you would think I was buying a house or a mansion in some of these states. And so, there are lots of things that when you talk about the distilled spirits industry that, I can absolutely understand, how as a minority it's been very, very difficult for us to build a sizable portfolio in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me because one of my interests I've been an interest for years is both the music and the film industry, and it seems to me that y'all are having the same issues that those industries have had, which is that we can have all the talent in the world, but it's the distribution and the production side that we're not doing as strongly in. Like I said, we have Oprah, we have the Sean Puffy Combs or whatever he wants to be called this particular week, but we have those folks like that, but they're few and far between. And then we have other folks that, because of those kind of headaches, don't seem to want to get involved in it. Like I know we've had this conversation even on this show about, it seems to us that a lot of, and you went to UNC, Naomie, that a lot of, like you would think our entertainers and people that are making this kind of money would jump in on it. You even mentioned, Jamel, about meeting with Sugar Ray Leonard, but a lot of times they're sitting there going like, I don't want them people running a check on my records. My records aren't that pretty.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you. I think that's one of the additional reasons that we created Harlem Beer Distributing is, looking at the model in New York, and I've just kind of watched this process. You have a great product, an award-winning product, 2 years in a row, best beer at the Bacon Beer Festival and the People's Choice out of 15, 20 breweries. And you say, well, why can't we get distribution? And we tried in North Carolina, and I know we don't have the time to talk about all the challenges, but when I said it took almost a year, a lot of it had to do with some of those challenges, just going through the process, but we couldn't really get the buy-in and support from distribution companies here in North Carolina. So the goal was then, okay, if you are working and manufacturing, you're producing the product, in order to be effective, we have to look at a distribution model that's, of course, separate from the brewery, but that will truly support you and market your product, because, unfortunately, we just didn't really see the love for, the support, anyway, in this area. So creating this distribution model, what I like to think is that, when you have an exploding craft beer industry and you open up opportunities for people that look like me, you open up a whole new financial opportunity that people just didn't really have access to. For example, right now we're partnering with North Carolina A&T University, their market and supply chain department, to help us build out a distribution network beyond North Carolina. And the students are working on projects in that organization to give us an idea of, if we expand, how we build it out. And, of course, the goal is not consumption with children. That we're not about that. That's not what it's about. It's about learning the supply chain and real-world scenarios that they can take skills and transfer to any other market, but it does give them some exposure to an exploding market that really hasn't been tapped by African Americans, at least in my experience. We've also hired interns from North Carolina Central University in Fayetteville State University in their accounting department, to give people opportunity that may not have access or opportunity to some of the things that we're participating in. And it has been a huge challenge, just being who I am and seeing the things that I've witnessed just working in the industry for about 5 or 6 months now.
Yeah, because it seems to me that it's just been real difficult, and you both brought up an interesting point, but particularly you, Jamel. It seems like a lot of times and I know you went to UNC, Naomie, but it seems to me like a lot of times our education system is very good at teaching theory, but not necessarily the practical nature of living. Like I said, you talked about bringing your chemistry background into creating the liquor and everything, but I sometimes wonder if we don't do that good of a job in terms of giving a true liberal arts kind of education where we're also teaching the folks how to make it actually fit into the real world. Because I think that sometimes, and I'm not knocking the academic system, but I do think that sometimes the academic system gets too caught up in theory and not enough in real world life. And I was wondering if that's been kind of your experience, both of you, because that's just something that I've observed. And it's not an HBCU or a predominantly white institution kind of thing, because I think it's across the board. Naomie?
Yes, no. I mean, I absolutely believe that, you know, colleges do not prepare you, I don't think, adequately to have a entrepreneur, you know, mentality. I mean, I think that you're right, you know, that there's a lot of theory there. But when it comes to, you know, practicality, I mean, you know, colleges to me need to have real-world internships. And internships where you're not copying paper, where you're not just, you know, a paper pusher or some runner, but you're actually learning, you know, I mean, business things in the area or industry that you want to go in. I mean, that is something that I totally agree with you in.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, this is going to be a wild tapestry conversation. Dean, I think we have another caller.
Yes, sir, we do. We have Javiera getting ready to come in, and we're going to bring her in just
Are you enjoying the smoothest conversation in podcasting? Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. Hi, this is DJ Smooth Jazz, syndicated radio host and co-owner of Portfolio Group, LLC, your smooth jazz lifestyle and entertainment group with offices in Durham, North Carolina. Portfolio Group, LLC specializes in promoting the lifestyle of smooth jazz listeners with the promotion of smooth jazz events and the distribution of African-American-owned wines. For more information, portfoliogroupllc.com, or you can swing by my secondary site, djsmoothjazz.com. Now back to Straight Talk with Dean and Mark.
And before we get back to Javiera, Dean, I do want to let both of our guests know. Shoe Crazy was a guest before. I offered them a chance to advertise on a regular basis. You'll be glad to know, both of you, that for right now, you know, this, I don't know how long I'm going to keep this going, but for right now, all you got to do is come up with an ad. This free advertising for right now on our podcast. Eventually, we may wind up needing to make some money, but for right now, both Harlem Brewing and Southern Wicked, if you either have an existing ad or you want to create one, you too can join our company of folks that are getting our word out on our little podcast.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
No problem at all. So both of you you can either email it to me, email it to Dean, or whoever, and we'll be sure to get them all in upcoming runs of this show. We're getting ready to switch the topic a little bit, but don't go anywhere because, like I said, we've been talking about government and everything, and that's what we're getting ready to bring in is local government. So, Javiera, are you on with me?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Javiera. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you all doing this evening?
Good. Doing good. We've been talking to Naomie Lucas, who is a UNC graduate, and I believe you're in Raleigh right now. Is that correct, Naomie?
I'm what, dear? What was that?
Do you live in Raleigh now?
Yes, I do live in Raleigh.
Right, lives in Raleigh, but is a UNC graduate, and we've got Jamel, who is with Harlem Brewing and makes Durham home and everything. But I invited you on because one of the things that's been going on nationally, and I think definitely here in Durham, is we have a very activist community of politicians. And one of the things that we've not had in the world, and particularly in Durham, surprisingly, is any sort of Latin American representation. You have changed that. So I was just wanting to know what got you into the whole political system and what got you into the whole activism system, because I've always known you to be somewhat of an activist as well, not just somebody that jumped onto the city council, but you were an activist even before you jumped onto the city council.
Yeah, so actually, that's how I met you years ago during Occupy stuff in Durham. So I was a political science major in college, so the activism goes back to that point in my life. I was also raised in a very political house. One of the reasons that I left the country I was born in, which is Chile, South America, was because of the political situation there. So I think it kind of embedded itself in me and my interests.
And what decided to get you to run for the city council? Like I said, I know there was a poll push recently to try to get somebody of Latin American background in there, and you were the person that they chose and everything. But what was the driving force to get you to run? I think there was like maybe 2 or 3 other people that had considered it, but they went with you. But what was it why do you think that they felt that there was not enough representation, and do you agree with that? And so what are some of the issues that you find that Durham is dealing with now?
So I think that originally, and I will say this, I'm running right now my first campaign. So I was appointed to the mayor, the current mayor. He was a sitting city council member, and so he had the rest of his term. And so I was appointed in January of 2018. And the appointment process is quite similar to a job application process. You submit an application, you have an interview. It wasn't an election. And there was a real push at the time. Currently, right now, in North Carolina, as far as I can tell, there are 3 folks who are Latino or of Hispanic descent in elected positions in the entire state. Myself, a county commissioner in Mecklenburg County, and a school board member, I think, in Newton, and that's it. So it's not just Durham. There is not a lot of Latino representation across the state, and I think it's very much needed, especially in communities like Durham, Raleigh, Charlotte, where there are, there's a large Latino population. Also, hopefully we'll see folks from other descents. I know we have some representation at the General Assembly level that are not Latino, but are populations that are more recently, have gotten here more recently. So for me, I was pretty involved in Durham public schools. There had been some discussion of trying to do school board. At the time, I was an education consultant. I've left that since January of this year, and so I didn't feel like ethically I could really cross those waters because we have clients in North Carolina, and so I didn't feel that was a good fit.
And I'm actually surprised that you just said that there's only 3 Latin folks that are serving in political office. And I'm saying that because a lot of times when people think of the Latin community, and we've got 2 other guests that are entrepreneurs, but there's a strong Latin entrepreneurial community, but it doesn't seem to have bled into the political aspect. And I was just wondering if you have any theories as to why that is, because when I think about the Latino community, it is very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, so I think for a lot of folks it's tied to their immigration status, not always. So, in North Carolina, I was raised in the South. I was one of, I always tell a story growing up. If you heard Spanish in the streets, you kind of turned because it was an anomaly in North and South Carolina at the time. This was in the 80s. I know I'm dating myself a little bit with that. But, and then, mid-90s, it was a real big just boom. I mean, all of a sudden there was nothing or very few, and then there was a pretty robust community. But we're seeing that, those are the kids who have, who are U.S. citizens, and you have to be a U.S. citizen to serve in most roles, elected roles, or appointed in my case. So now, and this is why I think it is really important, representation matters. I think we all can agree on that. These are the kids who are, in their mid, maybe early 20s, and I hope, and that's something I'm really committed to. I hope that we bring them into the political fold, and that in the next 5 to 10 years we see robust representation across the state.
Yeah, we definitely need more robust representation across the state. That's no doubt about that. Now, I was just wondering, for all three of you, just to make this more of the tapestry fit in and everything, there's been a very much of an activist kind of like build among people that are in the what would be considered young folks, and to me, young folks could be anybody under